Ahead and get the thing pulled up on my phone.
All right, we are streaming.
Oh, that's what I forgot to do.
Just post all this out real quick. Yeah, I looked up bots the other day to like learn how to set a bot. And I'm like, yeah, I'm just gonna let somebody else do that.
Yeah, I know like next to nothing. Actually, I know nothing about bots.
Looks like a
Okay.
lot of work.
You wouldn't think it would be.
I mean, I'm sure I could do it if I sat here long enough and figured it out. I figured all this other shit out, but I just don't have the time.
Yeah, no, I get that. Let's see. Okay, so I've got.
I mean, it took me 11 years to learn how to podcast correctly.
I feel like I'm still figuring it out.
Yeah, somewhat. Except for the other night when we had that little snafu trying to do the commentary track. I thought
Oh,
everything was broken. I was like, oh my God.
yeah. When I recorded my show today, I recorded the whole thing and then went to put it in Premiere to add the intro and outro, and the audio sounded terrible. And I'm like, it just baffled me because I'm like, okay, I've got the audio track set on my mixer.
Mm-hmm.
I don't see anything else. So I did a test and it still sounded like I was talking through the laptop mic.
Huh.
I'm like, it was irritating me because I had no clue what was going on. There was a hidden audio track that was broadcasting at the same time. So I had to record the whole episode again.
That sucks.
Yeah.
I
So
just don't understand. Like, I keep all my settings right where they need to be, and then I come back. It was Thursday night, and then like nothing was working. I'm like, I literally did not touch anything for 3 days, and everything just decided, nope, we're not gonna work now.
I think Skynet's just starting to hack into
It's the
everything.
AI, man.
It's starting now, but if James Cameron taught us anything, we know what's
Well,
going
if
to
the
happen.
AI is listening, we've been nothing but nice to you, so leave our show alone.
Yeah, I don't bash AI.
Yeah, for real. But I got pretty much everything up, ready to go, and it is
Okay.
6:01, and we are ready to roll.
Okay. Yeah, I got everything open, so I'm all set.
All right, here we go in 3, 2, 1. Greetings, programs, and we're back for another episode of the Nerd Cave Retro Show. My name is Jason Robbins.
And my name is Derek Diamond.
So you had a full weekend with the feature.
Oh Lord, did I? So Saturday, Samantha and I worked a wedding here in Pensacola. We did that through the afternoon into the evening, then drove from Pensacola to Tallahassee, stayed the night there, then woke up to go to Jacksonville to the Spotlight International Film Festival, where the feature got to play in a theater, which was really cool.
Isn't that the
And
best? Isn't that just
Oh,
the
it
best?
was so fun. The showing was really early in the morning, so there wasn't like a big attendance, but still getting to see it in a theater was worth the drive.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, and our mutual friend Steve Wise was there. He
Awesome.
joined us and spent the day with him, and then we had lunch at this really nice Italian restaurant not too far from the theater. That they closed down the restaurant for all the filmmakers, and had lunch provided for us. And after that, we had the award ceremony and a little social gathering after that. So not too long after the award ceremony, we we came back home because we were like, if we leave now, we can make it home at a decent time. So
That's a
it
lot of
was,
driving.
yeah. And I've already told Samantha that I'm like, I don't want to go anywhere this weekend. Just I need a weekend to just relax and do nothing.
See, people don't understand how big that stretch is of from the Panhandle, like the entire Panhandle to the other side of Florida. It's like that's if you were to drive from Pensacola, how far is it from Pensacola to Jacksonville? That's like a good 7 hour drive, probably.
Yeah, I think it's around 6 or 7 if you factor in the time change from Central to Eastern.
Man, that's a long drive to make across there. I've done it many, many times when my brother used to live in Daytona. Many times making that drive by myself, and it is the worst when you're by yourself.
And Jacksonville is just so it feels so congested. It feels like
Yeah.
Orlando without the fun stuff.
Yeah. I used to try to avoid it at all costs. Like whenever I would go visit my brother, I would have to go through Jacksonville to get to Daytona. I would try to time it either going there or coming back where I would hit Jacksonville like early in the morning when there wasn't any
Mhm.
traffic because it is gross the amount of traffic in that place.
The advantage to getting there that early is there is really no traffic. So especially getting to Tallahassee, we made insane time.
Mhm.
But it was worth it. You know, it was a really fun trip, and then there should be more news to come about the feature over the next couple of months because I've submitted the film to quite a few festivals, but a lot of the notifications aren't coming out until late summer, early fall. So
Yeah.
follow the feature on Facebook and Instagram at the feature movie to keep up to date with that. But how was your week?
It was good. Joey in the chat room, Joey Image hanging with us in chat says all Italian restaurants are nice.
Dude, that food was so good.
I'm sure.
They brought us like spaghetti and meatballs. They had some type of chicken dish, some stuffed mushrooms that were really good. Just a lot of good food.
Making me hungry.
I know I haven't had dinner yet. I'm making myself hungry, so I need to stop talking about it.
But as far as this weekend, I didn't really do a whole lot this weekend. Just played some Tears of the Kingdom. Watched the new season of Harley Quinn started. Watched those, and watched What We Do in the Shadows new season just started. So I'm caught up on that. That's pretty much all I did this weekend.
That sounds like a fantastic weekend, actually.
It was. Let me tell you, I could use another day of it.
Yeah, it's thankfully I had today off just to kind of to recoup. I was when we got home, I was out probably within 2 minutes of going to bed.
I get it.
Got a great night's sleep and caught up on some things around the house today. So it's been a good day.
Yeah, see, I know exactly the feeling you have. The first time I saw Monsters Anonymous on the big screen in the theater full of people on the big screen was just like it was a lifetime achievement kind of moment.
And you can't replicate it.
No, you can't. It's so cool. And to see
Mhm.
even see myself up on the big screen is like, wow, that's just weird.
What's funny is there's a scene in the movie when Jay or not Jace, that's his real name. When Matt, the main character, storms off set, there's a scene where all the crew members are looking really shocked. Well, Samantha is one of them, and she didn't realize it until we were like halfway home, and she's like, "Wait a minute, I was on a theater screen, wasn't I?" Like, yes, you were.
Yeah, that's something
Yep.
to knock off the lifetime checklist.
Yep, you can cross that off your list. You have been on a theater screen before.
That's so awesome.
Yeah,
But,
it was a good weekend.
tonight for the show, we do have, this is not our normal episode. This is another top 5 episode, which you guys seem to really, really like because these are our best, most downloaded episodes as our top 5 list.
People love a good top 5 list.
I don't know
man.
what it is. People just see top 5 and they're like,
Yeah.
I'm going to listen to that.
It's the same with my show too. Those are the most popular ones that I
Maybe-
put out every month.
Maybe we should just change the whole show to top 5 every week. Just top 5 something. think it's hard enough to come
But-
up with top 5 lists now. I'll try to do it every week.
Yeah. Yeah. But no, it's we always appreciate the the submissions we get, because that's, I think, what makes the top 5 list so great is that, like, your list will likely be different than mine and vice versa, and it just makes you think about games that you haven't thought about in sometimes decades.
Yeah. And the way we do it is me and Derek go ahead and do ours first, and then we read yours. So if this is your first time listening to the show, we do these once a month. We do the top 5 lists, and we put up a poll on the Patreon, which you can go join if you feel so inclined, and you can vote on what the top 5 list is going to be. We also have a Discord where people get on the Discord. We have a little top 5 thread in there. You can join the Discord. Just go to nerdcaveretro.com. We got links for everything in there, including the Discord. And we'll read all those after we do ours. So up first, let me go ahead and play this. We're going into our top 5 games based on movies. Here we go. So up first, we're gonna go with we'll have Derek start his off. We'll start off with your runners up first.
Okay. So these are ones that, if we were doing a top 10 list, they would have definitely been in it, but they just missed the cut of making it into the top 5. My first honorable mention is really a twofer. It's Knights of the Old Republic 1 and 2. We touched on them last week. These were, pun intended, game changers when they came out. And there have been some great Star Wars games, but none quite like Knights of the Old Republic.
Yeah.
It really felt like you were in the Star Wars universe. When I specifically remember getting Knights of the Old Republic 1 the day that it came out, and it was just an immersive experience. You felt like you were really part of it. And Knights of the Old Republic 2 is probably a better game, but I have more memories associated with the first one.
Yeah.
But they're both great games, but I had to include both of them.
I put those on my runners up list too, KOTOR 1 and 2. And the only reason that they ended up on my runners up list is because I have other Star Wars games in my top 5.
Right. Yeah, and it's the same with me. What's funny is almost half my list is Star Wars games.
Mine too.
That's why I wanted to clarify what we could put in it. One of my other honorable mentions is Toy Story. For the Genesis and the Super Nintendo. I reviewed this game on the show a while back. I remember hearing about this game a lot when it first came out, and I loved the original Toy Story movie. It's one of those, you can remember certain movies that you saw as a kid. Toy Story is one. There had never been anything like it animation-wise. The story was incredible, and getting to essentially live through that on a Super Nintendo was really cool.
What really surprised me was that the way that game, well, I haven't played it, but I saw the gameplay of it, and just the way that game looks, like, it looks incredible.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
yeah,
the graphics for it are crazy.
And you feel like you're in the movie when you're playing that game. And then and there's a reason why this one is in the honorable mentions, is Spider-Man for the PS2, based off of the first Spider-Man movie with Tobey Maguire. That movie was so gigantic when it came out. And I remember getting this game and I felt like, I was in the movie. The story, it's a little different than how the movie plays out, but it's in that type of universe. And I remember spending a lot of time just swinging through the city, and it doesn't look great by today's standards.
Well, that was the thing.
But it was still fun.
That was the first game that did web slinging or web swinging right. And you actually felt like you were, web slinging through the city, and it was awesome.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. So moving into my top 5 list, my number 5 is a game that you and I love, and we've talked about numerous times on this podcast, and that is Star Wars Shadows of the Empire. That was the biggest piece of Star Wars content we got before the prequels came out. You had a novel, you had a graphic novel, you had a video game, you had like audiobooks. you had all kinds of Shadows of the Empire related content.
Yeah, people bitch about
It-
Star Wars stuff out now. People don't remember. We had a 16-year drought.
Yeah.
Star Wars drought from 83 to 99. There was nothing. But Shadows of the Empire was treated like a full-on Star Wars release. I mean, it was comic books, it was the game, and they made a whole toy line based
Mhm.
on it.
The only thing we didn't get was a movie,
Yeah.
which kind of looking back on it, I wish that we would have. But
Yeah.
yeah, just the game is great. Yeah, it doesn't play as well by today's standards because of the N64 and its limitations
Mhm.
that we see now. But at the time, I loved playing Shadows of the Empire, minus having to fight an ATST with no explanation right at the beginning of the game. But just the little dots that it connects, like it has one of my favorite boss fights when you fight IG-88 in the junkyard.
Dude, that's one of
It's-
the most frightening things I've ever done in a video game, is fighting him in that Ord Mantell junkyard.
Yep. Yeah, and just, the little, like I said, the little details where it connects between The Empire Strikes Back and Return of the Jedi.
Mhm.
It fits really well, and Dash Rendar is one of the more underrated Star Wars characters, in my opinion.
And that
Yeah, he's
ship.
like Han Solo, but which is in A New
Yeah.
Hope. In the special edition, you see it leaving Mos Eisley.
See, that's the thing. Shadow, at the time, I mean, this was full on canon. Like LucasArts,
Mhm.
Lucasfilm, all that. It was all canon. And then Disney said, nope, not canon. Like, you bastards.
I will never understand that decision. My number 4 is GoldenEye. I know we did a panel on this at Pensacon. The Switch version notwithstanding, this was one of the first event games that I can remember. And when I say that, there's this hype that was built around it, and it's mostly because of the multiplayer.
That's
With the storyline. Oh, go ahead.
I was going to say, that's what it ended up on my runners-up list, because do we love that game because it's GoldenEye, or do we love it because it had that multiplayer?
I think it's probably more of the multiplayer, but I will say in its defense, still playing through the story mode, even though it's the movie, you're basically playing through the movie, it's still not a bad thing.
And Chuck
So-
in the chat room says, check your comics for Heir to the Empire #1. Lots of money. I have the whole set. I had the books and the comics.
Might need to look into that.
Let me look up on eBay. You go ahead. I'm going to look this
Oh
up
boy.
on eBay.
Okay. Okay. So yeah, I think we love more of the multiplayer for GoldenEye, but I still had so much fun playing it growing up that I couldn't leave it off my list.
Whoa! The Heir to the Empire #1 newsstand UPC variant goes for $299.99.
Wow.
Whew, that's
I don't know what to say to that. That's left me speechless. I was not expecting that at all.
Here's one that is it's been graded, and it is for $175. Buy it now plus 15 shipping. I have the whole thing. I have the whole set. I have all these. Time to break
you
out the comics.
Can you say ka-ching?
I'm gonna sell the whole set.
You should.
Hmm.
That's insane. I didn't know they were worth that much.
I had no idea.
Wow.
It's crazy.
Yeah, the number 3 on my list is Aladdin. A lot for the same reasons of Toy Story, but because I'm more of an Aladdin fan. It's my favorite Disney movie, and just getting to play through it. And it's one of those games, and Toy Story is kind of the same in the sense that there are more liberties with the game. It takes some deviations from the story, but for the most part, it follows the storyline of the movie. And just being in that universe, and the gameplay is awesome.
The Super Nintendo version or the Genesis version?
The Genesis version.
That's the one with the sword, right?
Correct.
Okay.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. Number two is a game that when I still think about it, it's still mind blowing to me, and that is Star Wars The Force Unleashed.
I forgot about this one. I love this game.
I remember playing this for the first time when you're in the first level, you play as Vader on Kashyyyk, and you have to use the Force to blow open this door that's made out of wood. When you do that, I said something I can't repeat on the show, but you can probably guess what it is. And it was just the use of Force powers, the graphics for the time, the storyline with Vader having a secret apprentice is incredible and is one of my favorite Star Wars stories that has been told in any medium.
Mm-hmm. My favorite part of the game is when you pull down the Star Destroyer. I mean, that was one of the coolest scenes in any video game ever.
Yeah, when I realized that was what you have to do, I'm like, oh boy. And then when you do it, you're like, oh my. That was something that, like, had the sequels been like with a younger Mark Hamill, Carrie Fisher, and Harrison Ford, that would have been a really cool thing to see, was Luke like bring down a Star Destroyer. Would have been amazing.
I know, right?
But my number one is the reason why Spider-Man wasn't on my list is because Spider-Man 2 is my number one. It took everything that made Spider-Man 1 great and improved on it.
Mm-hmm.
And that's really the main reason why it's my number one. Is I love the Tobey Maguire Spider-Man universe. I still consider him to be my Spider-Man. I love that movie. It's one of my favorite movies of all time.
Mm-hmm.
And just the game is fun. Like it took web slinging to a whole new level from Spider-Man 1, and you get to be Spider-Man. Yeah. And I know the new game for like the PS4 and PS5 obviously is a better game and is one of the best visual games I've ever seen.
Yeah, but I think if it wasn't for these, we wouldn't have those Spider-Man games.
You're right. No, you're absolutely right.
And I think if anybody loves and plays the new Spider-Man games for PlayStation, if you've never gone back and played these original PlayStation 2 Spider-Man games that are based off the older movies, just do it. Just go grab them. Mm-hmm. You can go get them for really cheap at the retro gaming stores and just play them. They're so good, and they do hold up. They really do.
Yeah, but yeah, that's my top 5 list. Spider-Man 2 had to be, when this was announced. That was, I'm like, I know this is my number one.
I had a feeling this either Spider-Man 2 or Shadows of the Empire was going to be your number one.
And they both made the list.
But in the chat room, Chuck said he sold a 9.8 Heir to the Empire #1 for $1,500.
My God.
I just need to get mine graded. That's all I got to do. But the bad thing is it takes like 6 months to get it back. Because I've looked into getting
some of my comics. If you could sell it for anything
graded.
Like that, it's worth the wait.
Yeah, true. I mean, I could buy a whole new gaming PC setup for that.
Yeah, absolutely.
But
that's insane. Congratulations for that.
Oh, man, that's awesome. For my list, for my runners-up, and these are in no particular order. We already covered KOTOR 1 and 2. Like you said, those games were a game changer, and no pun intended. Like, even though they're not based on any in particular Star Wars movie, they're in the Star Wars universe.
They didn't need to be.
And they're cinematic on all their own. So I really hope that they stick with their plan and make some KOTOR movies, because that would be awesome. But we'll see what happens in the future. Another one of my runners-up is Batman Returns for the Super Nintendo. It's basically just Final Fight reskinned as a Batman game. But it's a really great reskinned Final Fight Batman game.
Yeah, no, I've watched some gameplay of this, and I know you've talked about it. It looks really, really fun. And just because it's basically a reskinned Final Fight, that doesn't make it a bad thing.
Yeah.
Like, if you find a successful formula, why change it?
Yeah, I mean, if you like Final Fight or you like Streets of Rage, go pick up Batman Returns, because that's basically all it is a reskinned one of those, and it's it's just, I mean, it's Batman. It's awesome. It's based off Batman Returns, and it's so good. Just go pick up a copy of it. You already covered GoldenEye 007. That ended up on my runners-up list because, like I said, did we love it because it was based off the movie or because it was a really good multiplayer shooter? So, because I honestly, I tried to go back and replay that campaign not too long ago on when it came out on the Switch. And I don't really want to go through that campaign again.
And the controls or lack thereof don't
Yeah.
really help.
Didn't help at all. And the last one on my runners-up list was Mad Max for the PS4. The Mad Max canon is, the movies are kind of weird because none of them are really connected. They're sort of more like, if you look at Mad Max as sort of like this mythical figure, and you look at the movies of like, an adventure of Mad Max, like Mad Max in this adventure, Mad Max in that adventure. None of them really, there's no kind of canon, there's no kind of timeline, but Mad Max for the PS4 is kind of a mashup of Fury Road and the Road Warrior. So you take those two and you smash them together and you get Mad Max for the PS4. And it's sort of like it's like a Red Dead Redemption type of game. It's an open world. You upgrade your car. You go and get all kind of different cars. You open up different places on the map, like garages and stuff where you can keep your cars, upgrade them. You upgrade your armor yourself. It's a really cool game. I highly suggest it if you never played it. And you go pick it up right now for like $5 at GameStop or something. And Joey said Mad Max is good. It is really good. If you've never played it, I highly suggest going and pick it up. So now on to my actual list. At number 5, of course, is Shadows of the Empire. Like for everything that you said, we had that huge drought of Star Wars content from the late 80s throughout most of the 90s. We had Shadows of the Empire, and we had the extended universe. That's what we had. But Shadows of the Empire was just the way that it took place in between Empire and Jedi. We got to find out, what Boba Fett went through to get, Han Solo and Carbonite to Jabba the Hutt was an adventure all of its own. Like, it's just so good, and it still needs to be canon. And I think that's one of the biggest mistakes that Disney ever made, was making Shadows of the Empire not canon anymore.
What the Book of Boba Fett should have been
Yes.
was that story. Because think about it.
Thank you.
That's you don't really need to see his face. You don't have to worry about Harrison Ford's age because he's in Carbonite the whole time. You don't have to worry about how any of the characters look. Do a 6-episode series on Boba Fett getting Han Solo to Jabba, and that would have been money.
I mean, think about it. He's basically, not only is Han Solo the most wanted person in the galaxy, when he's in Carbonite and he's in Boba Fett's possession, that makes Boba Fett the most wanted person in the universe. So imagine all he had to go through.
And not to spoil it, but it shows why he's
the best,
the smartest bounty hunter out of all of them.
But yeah, it's so good. I that had to be in my top 5. Number 4, this one's kind of the dark horse here because the movie is terrible. The movie is awful. It's one of the worst X-Men movies ever made. It's X-Men Origins Wolverine, one of the worst Wolverine X-Men movies there is. But the game for the Xbox 360 was fan-freaking-tastic.
I never got to finish it, but it was really, really good.
It's so much better than the movie. And if you've never played it and you have an Xbox 360, I highly recommend getting this game because it is everything you want a Wolverine game to be.
Yeah, I need to go back sometime and finish that because, like you said, movie is terrible.
It's awful.
But the game is excellent.
And at number 3, Ghostbusters, the video game, the one that came out in 2009, I think it was. I played it for the Xbox 360, but it's on everything, and you can still get it on everything right now. You can play it, I think, this probably in perpetuity on Game Pass. You can get it on PlayStation 4 and 5. You can play it on the Switch. You can play it on Steam. It's everywhere. It's basically, it's the unofficial or official third Ghostbusters movie with the original Ghostbusters. It's so good. That game is excellent, and I cannot recommend it enough.
Yeah, I haven't finished it, but I remember getting it, and because I didn't play it when it initially came out, but no one has said a bad thing about this game.
Mhm.
And I see why, because what I've played of it is really good.
And you should. It's not that long of a game either. I mean, you can beat it in probably 8 or 9 hours if you just really got into it.
Okay.
At my number 2 is, of course, Super Star Wars for the Super Nintendo. It's hard as hell. One of the hardest platformers you will ever play in your life. But the reason I think so highly of this game, and I can't remember if it was in Nintendo Power or Electronic Gaming Monthly, but I ended up finding a code for like 99 lives, I think. And it took me and my brother used that code, and we just switched off. When somebody died, we'd switch the controller back and forth. Me and him played that game until we finished it. We blew up the Death Star at the end. We beat that game. Although we did cheat to get there using the code, but it was one of the few actual Super Nintendo games I could beat or say that I could have beaten.
How long did it take you guys to beat it?
Oh, it was hours. I remember at one point we left the Super Nintendo on overnight so we could come back the next day and finish
Smart
it.
decision.
Let's see. At my number 1, this is one of the best movies to games adaptations of all time. I don't care what anybody says. It's one of my favorite Nintendo games. It's Batman for the NES,
I knew this was going to be your number 1.
based off the 89 Tim Burton Batman movie. And it is one of the most fun platformers you can get for the Nintendo. And I know it's super hard. I know it's hard to beat, but it's just one of those games. It's in the top 10 greatest Nintendo games. Like, it has to be up there because it's damn near a perfect Nintendo game. It's just the right amount of hard to where it's not frustrating or makes you want to throw your controller against the wall. It's more like, I know I can get through this part, so I'm just going to keep doing it over and over again. It's one of those type of games. So if you've never played it, what are you doing? You should have played this already.
This should be a game that somewhere down the line I can play it and then we can revisit it.
Yeah, Joey said he used to leave his Super Nintendo on pause when he would go to bed, resume when he got home from school the next day. I think we all did that back in the day.
So why I was so happy that you could save your progress and Link to the Past.
Yeah, no kidding. But yeah, that ends up my list. Batman's in the number 1 slot there. So that's how I'm going to end it.
No, it's a great list. It's I won't say I'm very surprised by it, but it's still I completely forgot about the Wolverine game.
Yeah.
That would have been an honorable mention for me.
That was actually one of the first ones that popped in my head when we came up with this list. I'm like, that has to go on the list somewhere.
It's also kind of sad when the game is much better than the movie it's based upon.
Joey said, that's what she said, just the right amount of hard that it's not frustrating.
Well, I didn't want to say anything, but that went through my mind.
But now we're gonna before we go into your list, Derek, would you want to do our Patreon shout outs?
Absolutely. We want to shout out our awesome patrons over at patreon.com/nerdcaveretro. We want to shout out Travis Martin, Raven, Danny House, Justin Nispel, John West, Daniel Salmon, Mr. B. Res Coffee himself, Mike Eveland, Tyler Watson, Axblade07, Armez Jackson, Carlos Longoria, a.k.a. Rampage, Staff Sergeant Sketch, Gus and Penny, Matthew Salmon, Joey Image, and Mama Diamond herself, Donna Diamond. Thank you all so much for your continued contributions and keeping the lights on for us here at the show. And if you want to be a part of our awesome Patreon community, just head over to patreon.com/nerdcaveretro. For as little as $1 a month, you get your own RSS feed with ad-free shows, and you get early access to our fun commentary tracks like we just mentioned, Batman 89. We've also done episodes of Darkwing Duck, which we recently did, Tailspin, Gargoyles, Real Ghostbusters, full-length movies like Transformers the movie, Clue, Christmas Vacation. The list is near endless of what we've done, and very curious to see what we do for August.
I know we need to come up with our lists and put up the Patreon poll and see what everybody wants us to do.
Yep, absolutely. So head over to patreon.com/nerdcaveretro. And for new patrons, send us your social media info, whether it's Twitter, Facebook, or Instagram, so we can give you a proper shout out.
And up first, I'm gonna do Wally's first because I feel bad for missing his last month. So his is gonna be first here. He says, using your incredibly generous definition of games based on movies, my list is as follows. But I think he used our incredibly generous definition a little too far here on one of these, but we'll see. We'll start at number 5, Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order. That is a
excellent game.
Excellent choice.
Excellent.
Spider-Man 2 at the number 4 slot. Number 3, GoldenEye 007. And number 2, this is the one I'm going to take issue with here. He says Fortnite. Using your definition, it is a canon part of Rise of Skywalker and Free Guy mostly, but also the MCU, DCU, Terminator, Predator, Transformers, etc. I don't know. I don't think we could stretch our meaning that far. If it's in Fortnite is not in these universes. You're just basically taking the characters and putting them in the Fortnite universe. What do you think, Derek? Can we count it?
I feel like we have to. One, because we missed his list last month, and two, he's kind of got us on our generous definition.
Yeah, but I mean, our generous definition was if it's based off a movie universe.
You know what's going to happen if we say no? Then Fortnite is going to be included in some kind of movie, and then he's really going to have us.
Yeah, for real.
So we might as well just give it to him.
Even Joey says that's a huge reach in the chat room.
Oh, sorry. I meant to say X, not Twitter.
Yeah. And at his number 1 slot, he says Ghostbusters 2009. Most platforms even Switch. Yes, that is a excellent, excellent game, and I highly recommend it. We'll go ahead and go to our Discord right now. We'll pull those up.
All right. I've got to pull it up on my phone because I don't have
Okay.
I don't have Discord on my computer.
Well, I can go ahead and start it off because we got Mr. Joey Image and Mr. Brandon Rutledge, and Mr. I am the Rampage.
Okay, I've got the list pulled up.
Okay, you want to go do Joey's first?
Yeah, I'll do Joey's. He says his honorable mentions: RoboCop for the Commodore 64, awful game, but I spent so many hours playing it as a kid. Friday the 13th for the Commodore 64. And also awful. Indiana Jones and the Fate of Atlantis. I saw that on a lot of lists online. Old DOS game. Star Wars Galaxies. PC MMO. In no particular order. GoldenEye for the N64. Mad Max for the PS4 and 5. Goonies 2 for the NES.
Ooh, I forgot about Goonies 2.
The Battle for Middle Earth. Old PC game. Battle for Middle Earth, there was a version for the Xbox 360 that my friends and I played like religiously. And Batman for the NES, which you mentioned. And he also adds a movie based on a game, Days Gone.
I knew he was going to sneak it in there somewhere.
There's got to be a Days Gone. I love it.
And up next we have Mr. Brandon Rutledge, and he says, E.T., just kidding. Whereas honorable mentions, Alien 3, probably the only good Game Gear port, though I've heard that the Genesis version is the best one. I've heard that Alien 3 is pretty good too, for the Genesis. I haven't played that.
Yeah.
Ghostbusters, the video game, 2009. The Lost World, Jurassic Park, arcade light gun game. Jurassic Park, the Genesis version, and Scott Pilgrim versus the World, the game. And a
I saw that on a lot of lists as well.
And a special honorable mention for Kingdom Hearts franchise for their incredible use of the Disney animated film IPs. And for his actual list, he says Die Hard Arcade, a classic 3D beat 'em up. 4, Star Wars Episode 1 Racer. That was a really good game.
Yeah, that was a lot of fun.
And number 3 is a tie between Disney's Aladdin and The Lion King. Number 2, Terminator 2 Judgment Day arcade version. All the home console ports suck. I do agree. The Terminator 2 Judgment Day is a great light gun game. And that is number 1 is GoldenEye 007, revolutionized first-person shooter multiplayer games. What else can you say? Agreed.
Yep, absolutely. No, that's a really good list. Next up, we have I Am the Rampage. In no particular order. Well, I'll do his honorable mentions first. Terminator 2, the arcade game. Willow for the arcade. I didn't know there was a Willow game.
I know there's a Willow NES game. I didn't know there was one for the arcade.
Jungle Book for the NES. Judge Dredd for the Super Nintendo. I didn't know that existed. I have to play that.
I didn't either.
And Stargate for the Genesis. In no particular order, Spider-Man 3 for the PS2. Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order. RoboCop for the arcade. Batman Forever, the arcade game. And Jurassic Park Rampage Edition for the Genesis. I feel like that had to be a requirement for his list. He also says, now we need a top 5 franchises turned into games, because I was thinking about how much fun I had playing Incredible Crash Dummies on the Genesis.
I remember the Crash Test Dummies NES game, and it's terrible.
Yeah, I remember those advertisements in magazines, that those advertisements, like, they were all over the place.
Oh, yeah. Do you remember when the Crash Test Dummies were just a thing? Like, they were all over. They started off as the the PSAs for seatbelts back in the late 80s. And then they became like a cartoon series, and then video games, and like that was like a thing for like a hot second.
Yeah, it was. It went viral before viral became a thing.
And also, these are from our emails. This is from Mr. Armez Jackson. He says, tough list, mostly because games are loosely based, a prequel, or a continuation on the movie's source material. That being the case, this is my list. His honorable mentions are Batman for the NES. I'm glad that one ended up on a lot of people's lists here. Rambo NES, love this broken mess. And I want to review this game one of these days, because I remember playing it as a kid and having no idea what to do in that game, because it's not linear at all.
Interesting.
Jurassic Park for the Genesis and Lion King for the Super Nintendo. And for his actual list at number 5, Chronicles of Riddick: Escape from Butcher Bay on the original Xbox. I remember playing this game, and it was great. I don't know if it holds up, but it was, at the time, it was awesome.
I really liked the Riddick franchise.
I do too.
Like, I love that universe. I like the Riddick character. I just don't know why they didn't do more with it.
Yeah, but Escape from Butcher Bay was a really great game.
I never played it, but I heard good things.
Let's see. Number 4, Alien 3 for the Genesis. Number 3, The Goonies for the Famicom. Number 2, GoldenEye for the N64. And number 1, I was wondering if this was going to end up on somebody's list, The Warriors for the Xbox.
Come out to play the Warriors for the Xbox.
And I wish they would do a remaster of that, because I love that movie, and I never played the game.
Yeah, I never played the game either. Let's see. And I believe, this is last but not least, Mr. Tyler Watson, the official fact checker to the official fact checker of the Nerd Cave Retro podcast. I'll start with his honorable mentions. RoboCop for the arcade. I put a lot of quarters into this at Pizza Hut just to never make it past the first stage. Die Hard for the arcade. Also a Pizza Hut quarter muncher, this game was a lot of fun. This game was stripped of the Die Hard name when released in Japan, as Sega did not have the Die Hard video game license for that country, and it was rebranded there as Dynamite Deca. It even got a sequel, which was released in the U.S. as Dynamite Cop for the Dreamcast.
I'm
That's
Dynamite
cool.
Cop.
I did not know
I
that.
didn't either.
No. Star Wars Trilogy Arcade, another killer game from Sega. I spent way more than I should have at a movie theater trying to beat this. Same. Got all the way to the end of the Return of the Jedi section before I ran out of cash. The shooter bits were fun, but the parts where you use a lightsaber are real janky.
Yeah. Still love that arcade game, though. That game's great.
The worst is when you would get there before your movie would start and you start playing a game and you get really into it, and then you'd have to stop because it's time for the movie.
Yeah.
And I can't believe this is on the list.
Good Lord.
But there's a reason. There's a reason. I read his list before we started. E.T. for the Atari 2600. Yes, it is a notoriously bad game, but I hold a special place for it as it was the first video game I ever played. Without me showing an interest in it, my parents wouldn't have gotten me an NES for Christmas that year, and I might not even be here in this group. So thank you, E.T., for me. That is your legacy.
No, that's not bad. I like that.
Yeah, I respect that.
And Joey in the chat room says he should have added Raiders of the Lost Ark for Atari 2600. He played that so much. I don't think I ever played the Raiders of the Lost Ark for the 2600, but I do know that's one of the early games where you have to, it's like a collect-a-thon kind of game. And
right.
I didn't know you could do that type of stuff on the 2600. Seems like it might be kind of interesting to go back and try it out.
Yeah, I would say so. Moving into his top 5 list, number 5, the Super Star Wars Trilogy for the Super Nintendo. Cheating a bit by combining 3 games into one entry, but I can't separate them. These games are known for their difficulty, and rightly so, but that doesn't take away from the fun factor at all. Plus, you can always put in cheat codes. It's what I did as a kid.
Yeah, I think that's what we all did.
Yeah, I think we all had to. There's nothing more fun than playing through Jedi with infinite screen-clearing thermal detonators.
Oh, I forgot about that.
Yeah, I did too.
I think that was the only way I could finish that one too. That's the only one I still have from when I was a kid. Is Return of the Jedi. I don't know what I did with my original Super Star Wars and Super Empire Strikes Back cartridges.
Yeah, I wish I still had all that stuff. Number 4 is Ghostbusters, the video game for the PS3. I had so much fun with this game. It just nailed everything about Ghostbusters and put you right in that world. The environments were beautiful, the ghosts were imaginative, and the story was fantastic. My only downside was the library stage. It went on for far too long, and it just suddenly ramped up the difficulty by making you go through a long stretch without any other Ghostbuster to revive you if you get knocked down, causing you to do a huge chunk all over again if you died.
I remember that part. It's been a long time since I played this game, but I would play it again right now if I could.
Number 3 is Scott Pilgrim vs. the World for the PS3. More based on the comic than the movie, but it was released at the same time as the movie, so I'm counting it. Scott Pilgrim is a 4-player side-scrolling beat-em-up that plays like a modern River City Ransom. The art is gorgeous, and the chiptune soundtrack by, and I'm probably going to butcher this, so I apologize, Anna Monoguchi is top tier. My wife and I played through the original several times each when it came out. We got the physical version from Limited Run Games a couple of years back when it came out again for modern consoles. It arrived a few weeks after my PS4 died. When I finally fixed it last week, it was one of the first things we played together. That's awesome to have a game that you can play with your significant other. His number 2 is True Lies for the Super Nintendo, which you reviewed not too long ago on this show.
Yep.
I've been an advocate of this game since the 90s, and it made me so happy that Jason reviewed it recently because more people need to know about it. My stepbrother and I rented this back in the day and played a lot of it together, swapping the controller once one of us lost all our lives. Earlier this year, he came down to visit us, and it was one of the games I had loaded onto my SNES Mini. I turned it on, and we picked back up right where we left off. I love everything about this game, and it's a rare win for LJN.
Yeah, that was the biggest thing for me is I thought the game was going to suck because it did have that LJN label on it, but it was an excellent game. Like, it's really good. Although it ramps up difficulty for no reason in that stupid park, but other than that, I liked it.
And his number one is Spider-Man 2 for the PS2. Until the 2018 Spider-Man on PS4, this was the most fun you could have with a Spider-Man game. It really made you feel like you were Spider-Man, and a big part of that was how well they nailed the controls, particularly the web-swinging mechanic. It was as smooth as spider silk and so much fun to do. I'd often turn it on just to swing around the city for a while and let those troubles melt away in a moment of pure zen. The lady whose purse was just snatched, or the kid wanting me to bring back the balloon he let go of, could wait. And that honestly is one of the biggest selling points of that game to me, is you just get to, it's like Tears of the Kingdom. One of the best things you can do is just wander and explore.
Yeah.
With this game, you could just swing through New York as Spider-Man.
That's what I
like
do
as
with
someone
the
who was a
Spider-Man
Spider-Man.
game.
Yeah.
I'll just turn it on every once in a while and just swing through the city for no reason. Just to swing around.
Yeah. Just take it all in. But yeah, that's Tyler Watson's list.
So
Great list as always.
Yeah, thank you for all the lists, everybody. That was excellent. So thank you all. Not sure what we're gonna do for top fives next month, but if you do have some suggestions, please drop them in our top five. That is, we have in our Discord, we have a thread, top five submissions. You can go right in there and give us your idea for top five lists. So we would love to have some ideas on what kind of top fives you guys would like to participate in. So let us know, please.
Absolutely. And to answer Joey's question earlier, he asked 360 version of Middle Earth was an RTS also. Yes, it was. And it was a really fun one.
And Chuck said Galaxies was awesome. And I never got to play Star Wars Galaxies, but everybody I knew had a really high-end PC at the time and was playing Galaxies. And by the time I saved up money and bought a PC to play, it was already like nobody was playing it anymore. And it was going away, like no one was
Don't you hate
playing.
when that happens?
So that's when I started playing Warcraft.
Well, you may not have picked up Warcraft had you been able to play Galaxies.
Yeah, that's true. But I mean, I still think that a Star Wars MMO could work. And I know they tried again with the Old Republic not too long ago, and I know it's probably still going. But there's just something about Star Wars. I think that they kind of missed the point with it. And I think you should be able to be whatever you want to be. Like if you want to be a smuggler or a Jedi Knight, like that type of stuff, you have to sort of like, with Warcraft where you got to, get your XP and all that kind of stuff. But then you have I think it would be kind of weird because Jedis are so overpowered in that kind of universe. Like, how do you balance that type of stuff?
Yeah.
I didn't really think about that till it just hit me. I'm like, man, Jedis would be so crazy if they're so overpowered when you think about it.
Yeah, exactly.
I don't know. I'd love to play a Star Wars online game, but for now, I mean, they've been knocking it out of the park with all the Star Wars games. I still got to play the
Jedi Survivor.
Jedi Survivor.
Yeah, I haven't picked it up yet.
Because man, that last one that was so good. It was too good.
Yeah. For the record, I did play the Old Republic when it first came out, and I don't know what it was, but I just couldn't get into it.
Yeah,
there's something a little off about it.
Yeah, I kept looking at some of the gameplay videos people were putting out and some of the trailers and stuff they had for it. It just didn't capture me. It just didn't feel like Star Wars to me. I don't know if that makes any sense.
No, I totally agree with you.
But anything else before we leave this evening?
Yeah. As always, check out the Derek Diamond Experience. Dropped this week's episode about an hour before we went live. I couldn't record it because I was out of town for most of the weekend, but I listed top 5 TV cliffhangers, which was a really hard list to do.
Yeah, it was.
Yeah, so you can check that out. I also talk a little bit about the film festival that I mentioned earlier in this show. So you can check that out on YouTube and all podcasting platforms. Just head over to linktree.com/DDiamondPodcast.
And as always, go check out the Open Micers podcast with me and Mr. Jacob Craig. It's at Open Micers on Twitter, Instagram, or X or whatever. It's whatever it's called these days. I don't know what's going on over there. But yeah, just go check out, you can go to openmicers.com and just check out the show. We've had a lot of really good guests on lately. We've had some really funny hostful episodes where we talked about the headlines and all that kind of stuff. So go check it out. And for next week, I'm going to be reviewing, since last month we did top 5 failed gaming mascots. I got really interested, and I'm going to go ahead and review Bubsy. Bubsy and Claws Encounters of the Furred Kind next week. And I've played a little bit of it so far, and I can say it's not impressing me so far.
Should I make popcorn?
Yes, you should. You should definitely make popcorn.
I'll make some popcorn.
It might be rant time next week.
I'll be sure to mute my mic when I eat.
But I think that's going to bring us to the end of the episode, Derek. Is there anything else before we leave this evening?
Oh, real quick. I actually have a Patreon poll up for my next review that I'll be doing in 2 weeks. So if you're a Patreon subscriber and if you haven't voted yet, poll closes on Friday. So go ahead and get your vote in.
And you heard the man. If you want to be a patron of the show, head over to patreon.com/nerdcaveretro. As little as $1 a month, and you get ad-free shows. And if you want to vote on stuff, you got to go to the $3 level. But at least at $1, you can get the ad-free show, the RSS feed. You can get access to the commentaries like 3 weeks before everybody else. So just help us out every single month with as little as $1. You can email us at nerdcaveretro@gmail.com. You can go to nerdcaveretro.com. That's our link tree that takes you everywhere, even our Discord. And, of course, ncrmerch.com, where you can go get t-shirts and hats, stickers, bags, mugs, whatever you need. And I think that's going to do it for this week. And leave us a 5-star review wherever you listen to the show. So, Derek, please tell them what it's all about.
May the way of the hero lead to the Triforce.
Yes.
Oh, a fellow checker, eh?
And that's an episode.
That was fun.
Yeah, it was.
I love the top 5 lists.
I love top 5 lists. But yeah, I'm going to go ahead and edit this thing up a little bit and see if I can get it done before Open Micers. It's like a race before Open Micers starts. But thank y'all for hanging out with us, and we will see you guys next week.